I am this morning declaring that we will be doing a mandatory evacuation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a test. There is a major hurricane that is in the Gulf of Mexico.
This is life and death. This is life and death. There's just no doubt about it.
The worst of the storm has now reached New Orleans. This is the moment we've been talking about, dreading.
I'm wondering how long these levees are going to hold.
I need someone out here, man. I'm going to die in this attic.
Something was written about the response to any type of natural disaster.
I understand the anxiety of people on the ground. I just can't imagine what it's like to be waving a sign that said, "Come and get me now."
We're like under 9 feet of water here. We're trying to get out. We have a baby.
The water came in the house. You had about 7 feet of water in the house. From the water, I went up in the attic.
It said, you go in that Superdome and you'll get help, and they didn't get help. They got locked in there.
There was no power, air conditioning, water. Thousands were stranded in wretched condition.
But I want people to know there's a lot of help coming.
Stuck in an egg and me and my little sister and my mama, and they got water in the whole house. My mother and I were stranded in the attic, and she's a diabetic. Pray for me, help. Oh, Sarah, we'll pray. I'm going to have to pray for everybody, even myself.
Welcome to K20, defined by disaster. This ain't just a look back. This is a reckoning. It's been 20 years since Katrina crashed into the soul of New Orleans. But if you from here, you know, we ain't never been the same since. This film is for the ones who stayed, for the ones who lost, for the ones who rebuilt what was broken. You're about to hear straight from the source, raw, real, and rooted in the truth. Let's go back so we can understand just how far we've come.
Pump the party. Misdemeanor candle. Pump the party. Prime time candle. Pump the party. Lil Squirrel candle. Pump the party. Black Minutes candle. Pump the party. C-Slim candle. Pump the party. Lil Lip candle. Pump the party. Old Boy candle. Pump the party. Mr. Cole candle. Pump the party. Quarter T candle. Pump the party. Big Boy candle. Pump the party. 17, won't you make noise? I see the bird town building got some hot boys.
The father of my best friend had a boat, and people were asked to go and rescue people. And so he and his son took that boat and they rescued people after Hurricane Betsy. And he said the people who survived had an axe in the attic. That stayed with me. So that when people were saying they were going to stay during Hurricane Katrina, I said, if you stay, keep an axe in the attic.
They say tragedy defines you. But baby, we've been defined by resilience and our bounce back. We're tradition carriers, culture keepers, queens and kings of the comeback stories.
I love black folk. Black look like a revolution. Look like a family reunion in the park. Black look like it's a different world. Sound like a crawfish ball in New Orleans. Black folk joke around like Martin and got paintings from JJ in the living room.
Flood hit it and blew my door down, and water came in the house. We had about 7 feet of water in the house. From the water, I went up in the attic.
New Orleans, we don't take nothing serious. So like, we never seen a Katrina in our lifetime. You feel me? Like grandmother said they seen Bessie, but the story is if you're in the project, you're good. Every time they had a hurricane situation, everybody went to the project. So we live in the project, we good.
I was doing all the clubs. I was kind of doing everything, like really had the Midas touch when it comes to New Orleans stuff, you know.
For me, before Katrina goes back to my days at Alfred Lawless High School. We played in an iconic band, and it was kind of a special community. The neighborhood itself was close-knit, it was family-orientated, and also contrary to what people think. We were a community of parents who inherited their property from their parents who passed it on to their children. So we had a community that was ongoing, generational, and completely occupied. Basically, there was no room for anybody else to come in, and after Katrina, that changed.
The day before Katrina, we had grand opening at our ballroom and the restaurant around the corner, 4842 Florida Avenue and 5830 Alamo. So we was partying up. So Saturday, you know, the storm was on the way, but they said the storm coming. Sunday we had to get out. So my brother made sure everybody got out, packed up. So we didn't really leave the city. We went to Canal Street, where we always go. At Canal and Claiborne, they had a hotel right there. We always go there for every storm, but we come back home.
One of the hottest songs I was dropping in the 50. You know, going club to club, just doing my thing. And then all of a sudden, a hurricane was coming. I had about maybe 4 cars and a food truck. And so they didn't know what was going to flood. You know, I'm from Uptown, but I was staying in New Orleans East.
We were looking at the news, because one thing you do is you check out the news, and we believe Bob Brett, between Bob and Margaret, they're going to set you right. And so we had them moving, like talking all throughout the day while Dad was at the gig. And we were just kind of like calling and seeing what was going on. And we could see the facial expressions of like Margaret and Bob toward the end of the night. They were like, I never forget this. Like, we think you need to evacuate. People are going to die.
Houston, which is normally, 5.5. That took, 21, 22, you know, the hours it seems to get to a space. So we made it to Houston. By the time we got there to look at the news, oh, that's the part, you know, where you are seeing water that is the height of a stop sign. So it's like, wait, if the water is that high, certainly the house is underwater as well, you know. And then when you're seeing places you know, all of these kind of things, but
again, once we decided we were gonna leave, I kid you not, I will never forget this. My mom was like, let's look, we're gonna pack for 3 days. We'll be back. This is New Orleans. Let's just pack for 3 days. And that's exactly what we did. We packed for 3 days.
Late today, back up to a Category 5 now with winds up to 165 miles an hour. Now one of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Gulf.
Recent years.
There it is.
When weather emergencies happen, Margaret Orr is the one to watch.
I worked a good 12 hours. I think I was off the air at 1 o'clock and exhausted. You know, had been on the air for 12 hours talking. That's a lot. And I went to our news director and said, okay, what's the plan? Where are we going? And he said, we're going to go to the radar building in Chalmette. You know, it's a big, strong cement building. And I went, you realize it's going to be under 20 feet of water. And he looked at me, turned around, and walked away. Someone had offered me a room at the Hilton, and I called to see if it was still available, and it was. And a lot of us did go to the Hilton and stay there. I went home at that point. My family had already left. And you know how some people just pack a bag and leave? I packed all of my clothes. I knew I was going to have to work afterwards.
2005, before the storm. Oh God, I was in a very peculiar place in my life. I was addicted to crack cocaine. I was living on the street pretty much. I was in third ward.
When I think about before Katrina, I think about family. I think about my grandmother's house that was on Washington and Tonti, where we created so many amazing memories. They had lived there for decades, and that was kind of like our house where we would go to. We knew that there was food there, love there, family there, and that, you know, nobody was gonna mess with us because we had been there for years. So when I think of before Katrina, I just think of happiness and when everything felt normal.
Like clubs still popping, you know, everybody's still in the city like that. It's just regular functioning. And I think it was the night before Katrina when they were depleting everybody who could leave
to leave. So it's like now it's getting real.
I recall New Orleans as a young person, right? Everything was very communal, family oriented, very close knit communities, you know, coming and going to each other. I feel like the geography is always marked by family members. My so-and-so stays over here, my so-and-so stays over there. Everybody was much more of a tight-knit community. Some people didn't even need to leave New Orleans because everybody you knew and loved was here. I think part of what people don't speak about enough is that in 2004, there was a scare of a hurricane and everybody left. We evacuated the city in 2004, a large-scale storm that did not hit. And so it made everybody think they'll tell us that we need to evacuate and nothing will happen. And because of that false evacuation that people took the expense trying to make sure that they were ready for, not happening, then it made people not react when we heard about Hurricane Katrina. Why should I spare the expense of leaving when nothing happens? So I think that that hurricane right before Katrina kind of primed us for the disaster that would come.
I moved to New Orleans in December of 2003. I moved here from New York City, and I was living in Manhattan when the attack on the World Trade Center happened. And I had a regular person job. I was working with a business incubator launching startup companies in Tribeca. It's about a mile away from the trades. And I got a call from a friend, and he said, "Are you watching the TV?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Turn on the TV." And just in time, I want to say, for the second plane to crash into the World Trade Center. And that's its whole thing. I know y'all are talking about Katrina, but the sky was ash and horrible for 3 months. And I realized that the jobs that I was interviewing for were the jobs that the people who died in the trades had. And something snapped in my head. And I'd been watching this incubator throwing good money after bad with these angel investors. I've been taking notes on how not to run a business. And I looked all over the world, and I learned that New Orleans was in the top 10 art destinations on the planet. And so I came here.
Life was lifing, you know, at that particular time. I was like, yeah, you know, I ain't leaving. I got a 2-story house. I'm going to just go upstairs and flood. I did have a 1-year-old, so my old lady at the time was like, we're not putting our baby through this is all right. But I was still reluctant because no storm in my lifetime had ever been that big of a deal. I had heard the stories from my parents and relatives about Betsy and Camille and how intense those storms were and how they tore up the city and etc. But, you know, you kind of don't believe some of that stuff. But that particular morning, let's say, I was watching Channel 6. I was like, golly. And then they did an interview with Ray Nagin, who was the mayor. Now, I knew Ray from Cox because I had a show called Fat and all of that. And he was the head of Cox prior to him being the mayor of the city of New Orleans. And I just remember him kind of stuttering and iffing about some things. And he had always been so smooth and cool under fire. That was a red flag for me. Like, he was nervous. I had never seen this dude nervous ever. So those things coupled were like, okay, we're going to have to leave. Like I said, I did have a business. Weekends were big money for me with kids' parties and just entertainment for kids, you know, with our video games, gaming, and all of that stuff that we had out in the East. And I never forget, like, that was one of the last things I did was tape a sign on the window, due to the upcoming storm, we won't be open for the next couple of days, which was kind of ironic because it was still there a month later when it was complete devastation and destruction.
Leading up to when Katrina hit, my cousin was murdered. That was devastating for me. Then we started seeing, you know, the warnings about the storm. I have a half-sister. She lives in Texas. She was getting married, and I decided I should be there a few days early just to help her whatever, she needed. So I'm going, and I'm calling home, telling people, y'all watching the news? They really think this is going to be a big storm. And some people was like, yeah, no, you see all that red? And other people was like, but you remember last year what they did us when we left? We was on the highway for 20 hours, and we didn't even get a leaf on the lawn. I don't really know. So my sister, she was a resident, and she worked at Charity. And I think that week we had like 17 gunshot victims, and she said, I work at Charity Hospital. We are the news. I don't watch the news. I said, well, girl, it's a big hurricane. You got to get out. You got to get all the children. You got to get out. So she had my nieces and my nephews. I think it took them like 30 hours to get to Texas. It wasn't until Nash Roberts, when they pulled Nash out, the OG of weathermen. See, a lot of younger people grew up by Brett became our OG. But Nash Roberts had been the OG since maybe in the early 60s or before that. And whenever they would pull Nash Roberts out, no matter what your favorite channel was, you knew that was the business. That's when I think a lot of people began to wake up. So in New Orleans, most of your family is on a block, around the corner, 5 minutes away. We are very close. We want to know where each other is, and everybody was like confused. I don't know what to do. It was portrayed, a lot of our citizens was lazy and didn't want to leave, and they were on the interstate. But many people have cars that get them from point A to point B. Cars that was not built to just sit in traffic 11, 12 hours. So cars was burning out. That's what happened to my cousin's car. Burnt out. They had to take the children, walk down the interstate, find a hotel. People was running out of gas. That's a lot of your stranded stories too.
In 2005, I was shooting a television show randomly. I was in a show called Making the Band. I had decided to try out for that show. I was dancing in the NBA going to UNO. They were picking a girl group, and they were looking for singers and dancers, and so I shot my shot, wound up being a part of that. So I was in New York at the time. They had picked the final, well, we were in Miami actually. They had picked the final 12, and then they sent us home. So in 2005, around August, they were picking the final group of people, and they said, you know what, we're going to throw a wrench in this, because that's obviously, they want to make a television moment. So we're going to send all 12 of y'all home, and then we'll let you know when we'll call you back, and then we'll pick our last people. So I got sent home in August, and I went home to New Orleans.
Comment view, your new host,
A month before Katrina, I was videoing the BET Comic View for about 4 weeks, participating in the Essence Weekend also at the same time.
When the storm hit, the next day, I called my cousins, and they was like, it's just hot, but it's a really pretty day. It's just hot. This water is bubbling up from the ground. I said, what you mean? She said, I don't know, like water. It's just bubbling. It's just bubbling up. It's just water coming. She said, and it's like to your ankle now. She said, I don't know where the water coming from. I said, well, I wonder if a pipe bust. She was like, probably. I don't even know. Nobody's thinking that it's going to go past ankle length. Then we found out about the levees. And then the next morning, I saw the Circle Food Store. This my hood. 7th Ward is my hood. So when I saw all that water by the Circle Food Store, all I could think about is our family home, my aunts and uncles' homes, my cousins' homes. I'm like, it looked like we through. Then thinking about my cousins in the ninth ward, when they flashed to the ninth ward and I didn't see nothing but water and roof peaks. I was like, what happened? What is going on? 2005 was an ordinary year up until August. I personally, as well as a lot of my friends, we was upset with the violence because that was a hectic year just in the city. So we were upset about that, saying something needed to be done. You know, we got to get a hold of our people. Never expecting that the levee was going to do what it did to our city. 2005 is not the worst year of my life, but it definitely contributes to the most traumatic time in my life because it was after the levees broke, which started everything.
But Houston, back to the space, we were in Houston at my uncle's house. The day we got there, my mother, the main reason she wanted to go to Houston was because her dear sister, who was also a godmother of mine, was battling cancer. And the moment we got there, she transitioned. So we were dealing with more than one hurricane, right? So we got there, and yes, we had Hurricane Katrina, but then you have the Katrina of cancer, because we know, every storm certainly don't come with rain and flood.
In Ida, people in Laplace were in their attics, truly in a significant hurricane, and we knew Katrina was going to be significant. Forecast to be a Cat 5 when it made landfall. It was not, thankfully, it was a Cat 3, but it was a huge hurricane. And what we learned in Katrina is that large hurricanes create bigger storm surges. And we knew that this was going to create a very large storm surge. So I emphasized, if you stay, keep an axe in the attic. And it's interesting. The year before, we had had Hurricane Ivan, which hit Florida, also kind of made a return appearance for us. It took out the Escambia Bay Bridge. And it did that because the surge lifted the bridge off of the pilings. And we learned that with storm surge, you're going to lose your bridges. They didn't realize that. So at the 2005 hurricane conference in New Orleans, they talked about that. And I raised my hand and I said, so we could lose the Slidell twin span. And you could see all of the emergency managers looking around with this, oh my gosh, we could. And that year we did.
A month before Hurricane Katrina, they had a tropical storm and hit, knocked a few palm trees down on Canal Street. Our lights was off in the ninth ward for about 3 days. And that gave me a warning sign that our city wasn't ready for a hurricane.
We went on and got all the stuff to do our partying with and trying to get what we needed to buckle down, candles and all of those necessities, Plus we had our drinks and our drugs, of course.
Joyous night in New Orleans.
Friday night, everybody was at a football game. They were unaware. We were on the air nonstop at WDSU by that point. I'd have to look back. Sunday morning, winds got up to 175 miles per hour. It was a Cat 5 moving our way. Paul Trotter, the head of the National Weather Service in Slidell, put out a very ominous statement, and I saved it. I still have it. And he said, Katrina will rival the intensity of Camille.
Well, we didn't do it hard in preparing for the storm, just waiting for it to come because it wasn't that bad till it broke the levee. So we wasn't waiting, planning on it coming, but not especially preparing because it didn't appear that bad.
Yes.
But when it came, we ran up in the attic. and stayed up there about a week, I think. Hot, very hot. I could come downstairs and walk to the water and open the fridge and get water and drinks and stuff out, because I was floating on the back. Could open the door and get stuff out of the fridge. Food so I could survive for a couple of days up in the attic.
She came in the night. The wind screamed, the levees broke. The city we knew was swallowed.
So Katrina was actually the remnants of Depression number 10, which died just to the east of Barbados, but it had a mid-level circulation that continued moving to the west. Meanwhile, a tropical wave moves off the coast of Africa. It moves west. It merges with that mid-level circulation, and it becomes a tropical depression 12. So it's forecast to become a tropical storm and move towards lower Florida. It became, I think, the 12th tropical storm, and then it became the 5th hurricane.
Oh, I was stuck for 4 days. You know, when the hurricane came, we were surrounded about no more than 5 days. On the 4th or the 5th day is when we seen the rescuing people from the roofs. So we went to the 3rd floor and we were supposed to put a hole in the roof, and then we got on the roof, and then that's when they came. So we were stuck maybe 4 or 5 days. No, the crazy thing is, man, I was real sad. When they came and got us off the roof, they took my girlfriend first. So it was like maybe 4 or 5 of us on the roof. And then when it did come to our particular roof, they took my girlfriend, and she was gone, you know. And so I didn't see her for a couple of hours. And then that's when they came and got the rest of us. Then when the good thing is they brought me to the same spot where they brought her. So it took me like maybe an hour or 2 to find her, and then that's when I found her. But we were separated for hours. You know, they took her, and I'm thinking they're gonna drop it back down for me, and they didn't. They just took off. It was just a whole lot of people just standing around waiting for directions. You know, we didn't know what to do. All we can do is just listen, move left, move right, go forward, go back. You know, and then I'm not sure. I want to say if not a couple hours the next day, something like that. That's when we seen the buses start to roll up. You know what I mean? And then that's when they started evacuating us from that spot.
We were there until everything went out. I mean, then you couldn't see in front of your hand. I mean, there was no sense of light at all. All electricity, everything but the moonlight was gone. But bodies started floating past you. And people were getting sick. And there were things in the water that we didn't even recognize, where the things had done migraine together. I actually got bit by something and had an infection, staph infection. So when I did get out of here and get to Tennessee, I had to be treated for that.
When the hurricane levee protection system was built because of Hurricane Betsy, and I interviewed the man who was in charge of it, and I asked him, well, would you now stay during a Category 5 hurricane? He said, of course I would. No one can stay Category 5 hurricane. It's just not safe. A large, slow-moving hurricane moving our way, particularly if it goes just west of the city, is going to flood us. Our levees held for Hurricane Katrina, max winds 125 miles per hour. What failed were the canal levees. And the U.S. Organization of Civil Engineers said it was the worst engineering failure in U.S. history. The failure of the levees was because of engineering.
My sister-in-law and them, they came back home because they went to the Superdome. We didn't come back home. We stayed at the hotel. And when the levee broke, but the levee right here always leaked. It leaked from when they blew the bridge up and remove the bridge, the old bridge, and put that bridge right there. It always leaked right here. So they say the levee broke that does along, the Jordan Avenue in Galvez. But I feel like it broke right here because this where it was weak at. But I told my story, but nobody really never investigated or whatever. So when the next day, when the storm hit, but no water was up. We was walking on Canal Street because we was at Canal Street. So then the next morning, all the water. So it was like a scavenger hunt, man. It was like, we was in the hotel, the water was in the hotel. That movie, The Deep Blue Sea, just came out. We was scared, but we just had to do what we had to do. So we walked to the Winn-Dixie on St. Louis and Claiborne. It was a brand new Winn-Dixie. So we went and got whatever we could get out there. So they had the trailer thing, the horse trailer. So that's how we put it on there with a plywood and bring it back to the hotel. But it was like, just get it how you live. So we got the fire and the coals. We got that first put in a garbage bag to bring to the hotel. So we had made a meal. We fed everybody we could feed. Then the next morning, my nephew and them had stole a rider truck. But the rider place was across the street from the hotel. They stole the truck. They brought us to the convention center. Many people they could bring back and forth. So we got to the convention center. We just, because we always did work for black tie, in the food industry. So we got the food from there. Then they went stole a milk truck. We got the milk truck. We went across the riverway to Baton Rouge. So we went to McDonald's. That was the first thing we stopped for to get something to eat. We went to McDonald's. And the people had called. The people told them that we was on the back of the milk truck getting rained on because we had to put holes in it. So the people came, got us from McDonald's, took us to Denham Springs. Went to Denham Springs. We couldn't stay there, so they brought us to Baton Rouge to the hockey rink. We slept there 2 nights. And then my niece came, got us from Jacksonville, Florida, but the twin span was tore up, so she had to come around. And so she came, got us, we went to Florida. It's bittersweet, but we still here.
So my car's flooded and my food truck. I was in the Willowbrooks apartment, and the water came up right to the second floor. Yeah, so I was stuck. Me and my girlfriend was stuck for about maybe 4 days. That's when the helicopter came. And so we had to bust a hole in the roof on the 3rd floor to get rescued off the roof. Yeah, but before then, we was feeding the community. You feel what I'm saying? I had put a whole lot of food in my freezer, and I took the bottom of the stove, the toaster part or whatnot, and then we put the fire in it, and then we took the little grill things and put on top of it. So we was barbecuing and stuff like that. So we took the bottom of the stove to cook. And then once everybody else in the community saw that, they was doing the same thing. That, me being stuck, surrounded by water, it took the whole first floor out, and it just came right to where my apartment didn't get flooded. So anytime somebody say Katrina, if I think about Katrina, that's all I'm just thinking about, just me being surrounded by water. And then thereafter, once they took us off the roof, they brought us to a place where we all was, like hundreds, thousands of people. At first we was isolated. So all I saw was the people in our community. A few people here, a few people there. But once they took us and brought us, I was like, whoa, this is serious. I didn't think it was that bad because we didn't see past what we could see. You know what I mean? So once we landed, I think it was on I-10 and Causeway, somewhere around that way. And then it was like thousands of people. You know what I mean? And then they treated us bad. I'm pretty sure it wasn't on purpose, but it was like we was in the army. Don't do this, don't do that, move here, move. You feel me? I guess they was trying to get control, or they thinking we was gonna get out of hand or something. I don't know. But I was like, damn, we could have stayed until it receded or whatnot. But they took us to I-10. We waited. Then that's when they put us on the bus. We didn't know where we were going. We stopped in Baton Rouge, so I thought that's where we was gonna be located. They told us they'd get right back on the bus, took us to Houston. And from there, I became a Houston resident for about 3 years.
Katrina came through. It wasn't that much, you feel what I'm saying? Like a light rain, little wind. The wind did a lot of damage, but it wasn't that much, you feel me? So I guess I'm tucked away in Metairie. It's safe zone for me. I'm living at the exit that's actually where you're taking everybody who can leave out the city. So I don't really have a clear route. But my grandmother and them still was in the project, and I'm getting updates like phone's still working. Like, well, it's good back here. It's clear. You feel me? Like ain't no water back here. So me thinking if I'm gonna leave to go out of town, I'm gonna go grab my grandmother. But as I take that route to go grab my grandmother, I'm riding through streets that's flooded, and now I'm seeing what I wasn't seeing from my view. Now I'm seeing big old oak trees out the ground right now, and concrete tore up, and water is rising. So as I'm going out the street, my truck sinks. So as my truck sinks in the water, I grab my baby mama out the car. I got a bag with just, I probably got like 75,000 on me. I got jewelry on me. I got my gun on me. So I'm walking up the street with my bag, and I got my gun in my hand. But then I see a police walking up the street, and I got an AK, and he got an AK in his hand. So I done threw my gun dead in the water. Police, he walked straight past me like he didn't quit, like I'm done. Like he ain't tripping about nothing. They got people looting around him. He like, I'm out of here. You feel me? So I'm here. So I done finally made it to the project. Water about waist deep. All the way through. I walked from Carrollton and Elkhart to the Calliope. So when I get to the Calliope, you know, water still probably below the knee at this point when I'm back there. Man, we sitting there, we watching water rising. I'm talking about water that came to the porch, then to the door, and if you familiar with the Calliope, it's like they have a top porch. Water was halfway to the top porch, so like people who lived on the first floor was flooded, and we don't know where this water comes from because we ain't getting no updates on them saying a barge broke the levee or none of that, because you know there's no power, no TV like that, and ain't nobody really on the internet around this time. So they started evacuating OPP. So the whole broad bridge had inmates on there, and from where my grandmother lived, you could see the broad bridge on Elkhart, so we could see all of that. Like I said, water is high at this point. Inmates is on the bridge. Man, we didn't see the inmate go with his move and just jumped off the bridge in the water. You feel me? Like he trying to escape. I guess to my grandmother's house. She didn't cook because in the project it's gas stove, so people still gonna cook. They ain't about to let that food go. You feel me? So everything good in there. Water rising. Now we gotta figure a way to get out of here because we seeing water flooded the first floor in the project. That's a lot of water. You dig? So my grandmother don't want to leave. My partner, his grandmother, them over there, so we could convince the old people to leave. So now we got to take a mattress off the bed, throw the mattress in the water, put our grandmothers on a mattress to float them through the water because they can't walk through this water. So we got to float them on a mattress to the water until we get to a ground where they can walk with, you know, the water like knee deep. So we finally get to a situation to where on the other side of the project, front of town, they didn't have as much water. So we get there, they get there, you know, they can walk and everything. Now, man, when you get to Claiborne and Elkhart, they got a body floating in the water, dead. So one of the guys, he done took the body, tied it to the gate so it could stop floating and just to leave it there. You dig? So we hearing rumors of the evacuation buses is leaving from the Greyhound station. So if you're familiar with the Calliope going up Elkhart, you know the Greyhound station is on Calliope, which is Elkhart Street. So that's the route we took, straight over there. We get that on Greyhound. It's probably like 1,000 people at Greyhound. You feel me? Everybody hearing that, but it ain't no administration here that's telling us buses is picking up at certain times. You feel me? So word is just traveling like I heard. You feel me? Ain't no cell phone, so that's crazy that you think you gotta go off with somebody's word for your survival at this point. And we know how people take on into his words up. So we hearing buses leaving from there. We stayed up about a day till we realized ain't no buses leaving from over here. You feel me? So we get word back. They say they taking the elderly from the convention center, but everybody else got to roll out through the Superdome. So it's like my grandmother, she don't want to leave from with us. You feel me? So it's like we getting word. Everybody at the Superdome, we go to the Superdome. So it's like a quick walk from
Greyhound to the Superdome. We get to the Superdome. Now, this ain't even about my grandmother. This about the life I'm living at this point too. You feel what I'm saying? So you go to seeing everybody who beefing with each other in a situation. You feel me? So it's still tension between them, and then you thinking it's hot, humid out here, sun shining bright. Like after Katrina, it was like the prettiest day. You feel me? Like them days after Katrina was just so pretty, hot, humid, sunny. You know, this August, September now. You feel me? So you passing through that, you seeing, you know, people fight, arguing and everything. The Superdome, shootout break out at the Superdome. Two guys that was beefing, they gets into it. We hearing stories, somebody that got raped in there, then they threw somebody over the top. You feel what I'm saying? Like harsh conditions. I'm talking about Superdome, no power. It's when it's dark outside, it's dark outside. It's pitch black, nothing to see. You feel me? And it's thousands of people. No way you gonna use the bathroom, man. You feel me? You can't leave people unattended through this. You got people falling out. People just, you know, it's hot. Probably like 90 something. At this time, it gotta be like 90 something degrees. Like, it was a situation. You feel me?
When Katrina hit, I was 50 years old. If you take every year, we had a hurricane. So basically, on average, 3 hurricanes a year. So I had experienced 150. My granddaughter who died experienced 15. My mother who died was 73, so she experienced 210. So look at it as those are the things that we were used to experiencing, but we never expected Katrina. Katrina changed all of that. Katrina showed us that no matter where you were, no matter what you did. And ironically, when I think back about it, the weeks before Katrina, the news reports and everything that happened, but in past hurricanes, you always knew a hurricane was coming. The weather showed it, everything showed it. In Katrina, it was different. And the day before Katrina hit, the sun was shining. And to me, that was a sign that this is going to be something, you know, phenomenal and something that's going to be out of the ordinary. But to actually be at home on Sunday, try to leave and evacuate on Sunday, and have the sun shining on something that was supposed to be so tragic, you know, that turned out to be so tragic. It was ominous to us that something bad was going to happen, and it actually did.
The apartment that I was in before Katrina was at Gallier and Charters. And got back, and there was X on the front of the building.
You could see the surge got up to 14 feet. There was debris on top of the levee from the wave action. That levee, that earthen levee, did not fail. It was the canals. And then it was a huge disaster for the North Shore, where they had something like a 14-foot storm surge, and no levees for St. Tammany Parish, and then for the Mississippi coast. So a storm surge, 28 feet, 20 miles wide, moving inland 6 miles. That was a disaster. I mean, homes, stairs, foundations, everything just washed away right there on the coast. So for them, a natural disaster. For New Orleans, where 80% of the city flooded, it took 43 days to remove all of the water. That was a civil engineering disaster. 1 million people displaced. And it took a long time for people to get home. It took a long time for people to become whole, and some areas have never recovered. The lower ninth is a perfect example.
I made it back into the city that Sunday after Katrina, because I think Katrina may have hit on a Monday or something like that. Monday morning at 10:30 or something. But I made it back into the city Sunday. And I had to sneak in the city because they wouldn't let you into Orleans Parish. Once I heard the levees broken, my best friend, she didn't hear from my mother, and her mother lived in the lower ninth ward, and I flooded back. We didn't hear from her. I thought she passed away or something. So I was like, I gotta get back in the city. And I had Jefferson Parish ID and Orleans Parish ID. So I went to Jefferson Parish. They was letting you into Jefferson Parish on that Sunday. So I drove down, slept in a car in a line, waiting for that Sunday opening. And on Sunday, my best friend called me and said, her mom was safe. So it's my intention to go in there and recover bodies. You know what I'm saying? But that didn't happen. So they let us back into Jefferson Parish on Sunday. And I was at the border of Jefferson Parish and Orleans Parish on Veterans. And I met a news crew. And I told them in exchange for me helping them navigate New Orleans, because they was letting them into Orleans Parish. In exchange for me helping them navigate, I want to be able to go to my house in the night ward and get some of my stuff, because I know we're not going to be able to come back for a long time. So that's what I did. I snuck in on Sunday after Hurricane Katrina. And I saw some stuff.
It was like the rain pretty much was at an end, and then all of this water just started coming from everywhere. But where I was, all the water was on this side of Dryett, but not on St. Charles side, where all the people with the money and stuff live. No, it was in our neighborhood. So from where I could see, that's all it was. They did us the same thing they did us in Bessie.
I'm gonna say, in the Superdome, we probably was there like 2 days. You feel me? They got this iconic picture when a lady fell out and it's 2 guys carrying her through the crowd at the Superdome. That's my cousin and his mom. You feel what I'm saying? Like, rest in peace, Woody, rest in peace, it was Irene. You know, it's like, that's the situation that's going on in the dome. Like, you barely getting water. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I got 75,000 cash on me. I got $100,000 of jewelry on me. And none of this could save me in this moment. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I'm just as vulnerable as everybody else in this situation. You feel me? So it's like, I can't detach from my family because I'm my family lifeline at this time. Like, this what you work for. This what you hustle for. This what it's all for. When ain't nobody got nothing, that's when you gotta stand up. So I'm like, my whole goal is to make sure I keep everybody together. But that ain't how it went. And with the going, these buses starting to arrive now. So this day is in. Everybody wore out, stink, tired, hungry. We just trying to get people to the safest. Like, all right, put the older people on the bus first. So, but we don't know where these buses going. We think every bus is going to the same place. You feel me? So my auntie who fell out, they got on the bus first. We don't know where they went at. My other cousin and his wife, they get on the bus. We don't know where they went. I get my grandma on the bus, and there was only one other person that couldn't win. So I went with my grandmother, you feel me? So my other cousins who with us couldn't go. So we get on the bus, we get to Houston, you feel me? Now we get to Houston, we like at a refugee camp. Like, what is a refugee camp? You feel me? So now we consider refugees at a camp. And like you said, I'm okay. I just gotta figure it out, you feel me? So we get there. My cousin, they happened to get on the bus, and when they got on the bus, her husband's job got him all the way right? Because he drove 18 with her, so they got him all the way right. Rental, place to stay, they just put him up. So now, they good. I'm with my grandmother, so I went into one of my partner mamas. I'm at the Reliance Center, and she was looking for her son, and I was like, I ain't know he was out here. So we look for him. We find him. I'm like, can y'all drop me off at a hotel? So they like, cool. So I asked my grandmother, like, come on. Granny don't want to leave. You feel me? So I goes to the hotel, take my shower, you know, go buy some clothes and everything, make sure my baby mama's situated, then now I can move around. I can get back to the Reliance Center as a civilian and not a refugee. You feel me? That's crazy to be labeled as a refugee. You dig? So I get back to the Reliance Center and as you know, it's starting to have relief. They're starting to, you know, build the bunkers and however they did, whatever they call it, when people could sleep good and they got air and everything. So I'm gonna find my grandmother and my cousin coming to get her. So Graham's going with my cousin them safe. I'm able to back a civilian.
Every day brought on something different. The first days or so, it was unconcerning. Very little concern because I had been through so many storms. I mean, this is gonna pass. It's nothing I haven't seen before. 2 or 3 days, and then I'm in total darkness. What the hell now? I've never been in so much darkness where you could not see across the street. You could not see the person in front of you. Without our phones, without our lamps, and because we went to the store and we stole batteries, you know, got batteries out of the store. I don't know if you want to say steal or lifted or whatever, because you know nobody there paid for them, so we took them. We did what we could to keep our devices and things going, because we needed flashlights in, because there was no light, none. So then we were able to survive another day or two, you know, so that's how that was working. We had bottled water we got out of the stores and all of those things, and that's what we was taking baths with, brushing our teeth with, and trying to keep going until the lights come back on, until somebody shows up, you know, and let us know something other than what we already knew. So that was fine for the first couple of days, and then the third day, now you're walking in this water and you're getting bit, or you cutting your feet, you know, or something bit you over here, something worse than what bit that one, or, you know, things start happening. And so now you're concerned because, okay, there's no medicine, no doctors, nowhere you can go, so what you gonna do? Now we start discussing how we gonna get out of this, because this is gonna look like it's worse than what we thought it was. We could hear on the radio now, and somebody found a computer, laptop, and we got pictures. And when we seen what the city was and what other people were seeing, that's when we made up our minds. It's time to go. Everybody gotta go. We had an old man who had one leg and we had to carry him out of there. That was a nightmare. I mean, the decision to stay was the worst decision I ever made, because that was so frightening. By the 7th day, I literally was scared shitless. Because now I know I'm about to die, or we're in a position where anything can happen.
But at that time, the water got inside of the truck, so we wound up getting stuck there. So my father-in-law, rest his soul, and he stayed on St. Bernard by the St. Bernard Project. So I don't know how the hell he got from the St. Bernard Project to Uptown, right? So I see him in the water, I'm like, what is going on? So directly across the street from me was a place called Captain Sal's. And he was on the steps directly across the street from me. So I told him to just try to come over. By that time, the water had to be about, I'm 6'4", I'm gonna say about 5 feet at that time. So he was floating on something. So I said, come on, come on, come on. It was daylight at this time. And I said, come on, come on. So he was slow coming, and then he went under. And I jumped on the house and dived off the house when he got him. And why I say it had to be about 5 feet, because once I grabbed him and brought him back to where I was upstairs, the stairs, I was able to like tiptoe and hold him and bring him up there. And I said, what the hell are you coming over here for? Oh, I thought the pull boy shop was open. So I'm thinking maybe he was in a state of shock. I don't know. So I wanted to get him upstairs, and so at that time, one of my tenants, he worked for Councilman Oliver Thomas. So I called him. Well, I called him at the time, and I asked him, did he have any food in the house? Some canned goods. He said, yeah. So I went down. Water about that time was still about 5 feet. And I broke his window, I took all the canned goods, right? And then I had like a little butane stove that I had. So I took all the canned goods, like the pork and beans, the corn, the rice. So I kind of was cooking upstairs at that time. We were just cooking the rice and the pork and beans. That's how we survived.
I said a prayer before I left, asking God to please protect the city, to please protect our people, to please protect the area. I raised my arms up, I turned in a circle, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that we would have devastation, that many people would die. I knew it. And so then I drove back to the station. A group of us went to the Hilton, and that's where we stayed. Remember, I'd been working since midnight. I fell asleep by 7 o'clock. By 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I woke up to the sound of my grandmother's rocking chair creaking, and I realized it wasn't my grandmother's rocking chair. It was the building going back and forth. The water in the toilet was going back and forth. And I went, let me get dressed, because if the building's coming down, I want to be dressed. And I went downstairs. Thankfully, I was only on the 10th floor, and I started doing phoners to the station, just reporting what was happening. And about that time, a large number of people started coming down the escalator at the Hilton, you know, where that big bank of windows is. And of course, it wasn't working. They were walking down. And at that time, the windows shattered on top of them. Thankfully, no one was hurt, which was crazy. And where they were staying was flooding. The roof was leaking or something, so they were coming down. I was doing the phoner, and they went, wait, we got to break in. Ken Jones is reporting the roof of the Superdome is peeling off. And that's where 20 to 30,000 people were staying. So at that point, I was no longer doing phone reports, and then the phone died. You know, we didn't have electricity. We did have a battery-powered radio. WWL radio was on the air, and it was interesting. There was a group of people just huddled around the radio in the dark, listening to what was happening. We weren't hearing anything from some neighborhoods, and I'm going, what's happening? What's going on? Finally, we were able to leave the Hilton. Somebody had a Humvee, so we drove out, and we saw the water rushing in. We got close to Channel 8 TV, and you know, this wall of water. It wasn't that high at that point. It was maybe 1 to 2 feet, but a wall of water was moving in. And I knew that the levees had broken. And at the time I said, the city's going to fill up until we reach an equilibrium with the lake, or until those holes are plugged. And there were so many holes in those levees. And the water was indeed rushing in. And it took 43 days to get rid of it. At some point, some water 15 feet deep. I was talking to Robert Green, and he said the barge came through his wall, and the water was 25 feet deep. I don't know how deep it was, but it was awful. A wall of water. rushing through all of the areas where those levees broke, and all of the homes along those man-made, well, they're all man-made, but the canal levees were moved, were destroyed, and then they became debris to destroy other homes or impact other homes behind them, which is exactly what happened in the hurricane of 1900 in Galveston.
Contacting people was kind of hard. Like phones were jacked up at that particular time. You know, we weren't advanced as we are 20 years later. One of the lifelines actually was MySpace. Everybody was on MySpace at that time. I don't know if you remember that, but a lot of people were hitting back on MySpace to check in, as they say.
Most phones was gone. You didn't walk through water. You didn't been through the worst conditions, so ain't nobody got no phones at this point. Once I got to Houston and got situated, I was already traveling to Houston before Katrina hit. So I had friends in Houston, so I was able to get around in Houston and able to get me a phone and get me credit cards back. You feel me? And get me a rental car. And just get my life, like I said, back into civilian mode. So once that happened, I was able to start getting contacts with people to figure out where they was at. And the city wasn't open. So, like I said, when I made it on the bus and got to Houston, it still probably was 3 days before other people got to Houston. So they must have, you feel where I'm at with it? So it wasn't a 1 day everybody left. It's like a 10-day, 14-day process of finding people, getting them to shelter. You feel me? And then getting them to Houston. So some people ain't even had the opportunity to get out their house. You feel me? Like they got another picture on the news. The lady in a basket in a helicopter airlifting them. That's my partner mama. So they didn't even make it to be able to get to the Superdome because the water was so high. You feel me? So we talking about the city opening up. That wasn't even an option for the first month, I won't say.
Started a whole new idea of what my business was going to be. I started thinking about buying a house. I started looking at moving my tax business to Nashville and continuing. And I kept coming back to New Orleans, you know, to take care of business. Kept coming back to New Orleans when we found my granddaughter's body. Kept coming back to New Orleans when we actually found my mother's body. So it almost was like a sickness, homesickness, that you couldn't get away. I wouldn't be happy in Nashville. I could continue my life in Nashville. I wouldn't be happy in New York. I could continue my life, but it wasn't my life. My life was here. So that was important for me to come back here to where I felt the most comfortable. And my feeling of good was what I could bring back to my children.
It was things I was just noticing, and my dogs kept trying to come inside. Certain things kept, you know, animals. I'm a observer, right? So I'm reading things in that manner, and when I'm seeing certain things happening that would not happen, I'm like, there might be something. Yeah, there might be something going on here. And my mother, I have a cousin named Katrina, and my mom was like, look, if the storm anything like your cousin, we got to get the hell up out of here.
Moms turned shelters into schools. Daddies rebuilt homes with their bare hands and broken hearts. We cooked, we prayed, we second-lined in the rubble. We ain't just survivors, we're tradition carriers, culture keepers, queens and kings of the comeback stories.
Birmingham had a lot of New Orleanians and people from all over the coast, you know, of Louisiana, Mississippi. It was real interesting. It was real humbling, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, I ain't blowing my horn, but that was a big deal, you know? Still, I've done a lot in the city, so everybody knew Wild Wayne between TV and radio. It was really comforting for a lot of people to see somebody they knew in a foreign space, in a foreign place. It was like a stand-up moment for me because like you're just trying to survive like everybody else, but you still have to be a sphere of influence to them and try and have information about resources and, you know, the pats on the backs to people that felt like they were losing it all. It was an important space to be in while on the inside you're dying, like you're crumbling, you know, everything that you have known for your entire life is gone. I was really in a low space on the inside. I didn't show it on the outside, but it was a depressing moment. I called it I had CNNitis. Like I couldn't turn the TV off. Like I would sit there and cry, like watching all these familiar spaces and places and neighborhoods and people that you knew. Look at that, look at that part. Man, that's the project, that's the hospital, that's Canal Street. Like gone. I live by the fairgrounds. They show aerial shots of the fairgrounds as like Lake Gentilly, you know, and to see the amount of people that were on rooftops and kids looking like you're in a third world country, you know what I'm saying? It was devastating.
It was a tragedy. I would never want to face that no more in life. It was a tragedy.
Large sections of those canals failed, flooding the Ninth Ward, flooding Fillmore Gardens, flooding Lakeview, and something like 1,400 people died. Close to it, just under 1,400 people. It was devastating.
But you know, it wasn't only us. You know, it was a disaster, so we had to wait for what we could get. But when we came back, we're still scuffling right now. But the thing is, we back, and they have like the undercovers, the snakes, the people with all the money. They try to come at you. Like, for instance, I had property tax for $1,700 for this house. They have a man called Flag Boy Enterprise. Now I'm thinking he, you know, one of my Indians or whatever. But it's a company. And they undercutting everybody over. They pay your property tax and they getting you out. A lot of people on Desalone Street, a lot of people move out, but I'm fighting them. Because this is where I'm born and raised at. How y'all can just come take this and want extortion $30,000, $40,000 for something what you paid $1,700 for? It's just, you know, just you against the world. Because they trying to get you out of here. It's one disaster after another one. To me, you know. But I'm going to hold on. God got me. I'm not losing the faith.
So I think I have the more odd story of as everybody else is leaving, we're coming back. Because my dad had to help to bring the chemical plant back up. I feel as though I was part of that initial, I don't want to say rebuilding phase, but maybe that's what it was. We were only gone for maybe somewhere between a week or two. And then we were coming back into the city. So when Hurricane Rita hit, I was here. Everything was reflooding and everything. I was, as I said, a young person. And at that point, I wanted a job. Now, I'm a money go-getter, okay, as a young woman. So I wanted to get a job. So I remember going to the Savor Center grocery store that was on Belle Chase Highway in Berman. They had a Savor Center right there. And I went there and said, I want to work. And the woman told me, she said, well, come back after this hurricane hits. Right, and that was Hurricane Rita. So I was back in the city early. And I did come back right after the hurricane hit. And I worked at that grocery store. It was the only one open for miles. So I received everybody who was trying to come and get food and get essential services. We served all of those people, thousands of people. We would have long lines and everything because people knew that we were open. And they would be buying food for their entire family, for family collectives, taking stuff and going way out to some of the other parishes because we were an open grocery store.
And I stayed with my friend Vanessa, with my cat and my ex in Metri because they didn't flood. And got the house, there was no kitchen, no floors. There were 30 day laborers living in here.
We were the only grocery store that was doing Western Unions. So when Mexican workers started coming to the city, trying to help us to rebuild and getting some of that money, and they were sending it back home, we were the people processing that. So I also was part of that peculiar situation where I'm here helping people to rebuild, get essential services out to people, but then also I'm serving Mexican workers who are taking the bits of money that they're getting and sending it back home, right? And I think that that is a peculiarity inside of the story, because people don't really discuss how much Latino workers coming to the city helped us to rebuild. And that was a population that became criminalized after Katrina. They started telling us they might bring crime into the city. We haven't seen that, right? And I think that that's important because of the way that they're criminalizing Latinos now. You know, they're telling you, oh, they're MS-13 gang members, but we saw them helping us to rebuild this city. And if anything, when they came, at different points, they became targets because of them being helpful and having money. We didn't see them making us victims like they tried to tell us that they would.
And I reached out to the guy that owned the house. He bought it 4 months before the storm. He had the movie studio across the street. It's got a green screen and every Ninth Ward Studios. And he bought it 4 months before the storm. His wife was sick. The idea, so this is a double. So he wanted to put the nurse on one side and then he and his wife on the other. And then the water was to about here. Whatever was in here that was left, they kicked out. I had that Louisiana 4-foot gut job, so from here down, I know you know. So what was it like? I did what I do, just 1 foot in front of the other, and then got the house, got a contractor from Minnesota.
So my partner Lucky Johnson, he had property in Baton Rouge, so he found me one of his apartments. I stayed there, and then maybe a couple of months later, I came on back down to New Orleans.
And then Katrina happened, so it was like so much like trauma on top of, and I don't remember anybody asking me about that. Like somebody who I saw every day, somebody who's literally a year under me being killed, like left from my house and was run over by a car. So it's like, I just feel like the way that people, I don't know, help the youth is so important. Like to not think that because somebody's young, that they don't experience the same thing. Like they don't go through stress, that they can't be depressed. So that's why like I'm always just trying to, in my stories too, like tell as many stories about the youth, because I feel like they go through stuff. So maybe that is my healing, you know, when I think about it.
Today, right? Let's say if one project had 1,600 units, right? And they rebuild this neighborhood to current today, and they only have 600. You feel where I'm at with it? So if we underdeveloped, we lost a lot of neighborhoods that was no insurance. That's just it. It's no insurance on the whole neighborhood, and then insurance playing games. Oh, it's wind, it's flood, so people ain't getting covered. Then we got the road home situation, right? To where it's cashing people out who don't want to come back, so they taking that. Then you got the road home for the people who want to stay, and lack of education, you get predators to come in. So now you got contractors that's coming in on a person who don't know nothing about contract work, and they just come through and steal everything and don't do the work. Then we got the Chinese drywall situation where people getting bad sheetrock in their house and they didn't pay for the work, and now the contractor don't want to replace that because they spent their money on it also. So coming home, understanding the business of home, it wasn't able to rebuild in that way, right? But again, we're talking about the government. The government should have put measures in place and not band-aids on these situations to where we got neighborhoods that still didn't come back. The Calliope project still ain't fully rebuilt to how many units it lost.
I do remember more. I do remember at the time I was not a teen, but there was Teen Summit because I had older sisters who went to Teen Summit. And I just remember, like, as years went on, that there was no longer, like, any of that. I would say that that played a role in, like, helping the youth. Yeah, and I do feel like there could be more organizations. And I feel like stuff is coming, like, I see so many people putting together youth-based events now. So I can't say that it doesn't happen, but I do feel like right after Katrina, yeah, the city was just kind of like lost. Like, I don't remember there being a lot of that.
You know, but if you look at Uptown, it's pretty. It's not as beautiful, you know. But then as you go, it's like, you know, what about Sunni, what about what about the East? That's nothing. That's why I think we need to get some investment in those areas, because if you have something invested in those areas, then guess what? It brings business. You know what I mean? Just say, not Walmart, but I'm just saying, you know, when you bring Walmart, everything around it lights up, right? And so we need to bring something in the 91 in the East where everything lights up. And we talking about in those communities, not just on the outskirts, not just on the big old highways. Those communities need to be bright. And if you brighten up those communities, then guess what? Now the value and everything goes up. And then now you can fix this, you can fix that.
I am a very empathetic person. So hearing stories about people saying that they're trying to come back, they're trying to convince people to come back, some hearing stories where people don't want to come, you know, hearing about the devastation, people who lost people, and you know, all of that, it let me know that the government wasn't doing enough to be able to address people, to be able to provide stability and resources for them that people could count on and depend on. So there was a lot of piecemealing information together, going through the rumor mill. You hear that a person needs to call this number, but that's not the right number. You should call this number. That number, you should say this. You should do this. And how I feel like I was inside of like this nexus or this center where people are trying to put together information and decipher what is the rumor mill. Now, this, for me, it pulls out exactly some of the first thoughts that I had about things. How is this disaster response so scattered? How is it that it's not cohesive? That there are not, if this is what happened to you, go here. If you're looking for a loved one, go here. If you're trying to get information about your home, go here. I would hear about people on hold with Red Cross for hours. People wondering, well, how is it that they get the stipend for the hotel? Because you see, my sister, she needs it because she got her kids and didn't. You see, if you're one of the people who got evacuated away on a bus or a helicopter, how is it that you get the information that you need to come back to the city? How do you get a FEMA trailer? What do you need to be able to do to make sure that the FEMA trailer, when it comes, actually gets set up on a piece of property? Okay. And I think that that was the start of disinformation, because we still are dealing with that. You see, I know some people who helped people to be able to rebuild, who they got hold of toxic drywall. You don't know you have toxic drywall as soon as you get it. But in the years after you start to experience health problems, somebody might say, you know what? It could be your drywall. You have to get an inspector. And then, now how do you rebuild your home?
Got a contractor from Minnesota, pulled the permits, and he never did a lick of work on this. And when I got it, I looked at my ex and I'm like, I'm about to put a 6-figure investment of hope that you know what the fuck you're doing. It was terrifying. Yeah, I've never worked so hard in my life. There's a stab here from a drywall saw, because I was in the kitchen, what would be a kitchen. There was no kitchen or countertops or anything, no electricity. I want to say that we ran like extension cords across the street to some power somewhere so we could charge drills and stuff. And I didn't understand. Also, it was a mess. It's a mess. So I remember taking the drywall like this, and taking it over, and it just went right through. And it went into my arm. And it's like, it was terrible. It was like July of 2006, and just sweating balls and terrible. And so there was a huge blood stain on the subfloor in front of the refrigerator, about that big. And I got a magic marker, and I put a big magic marker heart around it, and it says Maris blood with a little arrow. So there's that. Oh gosh, there's so much. So there was no place to make groceries here, but I remember going out to Metri to do whatever it was we were doing, and the burned trees 12 feet up, just brown in the bathtub ring around the city where you'd be going down the highway, and the ring was consistent, you know, same height where the water settled. But because you were going up and down the road, as you were driving along, you'd see the ring ripple. And it wasn't the ring rippling, it was you. And every time I'd see that huge pile of kids' toys and debris and couches and all of that, you know, 20 feet in the air, 30 feet in the air, and I would start crying, and I was a mess. And my ex looked at me, he's like, you need to stop this. This is our reality now. If you keep doing this, you're going to be useless. You need to wrap your head around the fact that this is the new normal. And it was harsh, but he was right. And we kept on doing. When there was some food in the quarter, I got on my bike, and I rode and got whatever I got. And as I'm pedaling back, I am not exaggerating, there was a pack of formerly domesticated dogs, like pets, that had gotten left behind. And they smelled, there must have been about 7 of them. Some with like their leashes gnawed through, and they smelled the food on the back of the bike, and they chased me down river charters, just hunted by a pack of dogs. I have never pedaled so fast in my life. It was crazy, just boom, 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 boom. And I finally got back here, and it was terrifying. I'm glad I was not on foot. And then we were working on the house, and there was a woman who just kind of wandered in, just looking shell-shocked. And she had a sandwich, just walked in, and she starts eating her sandwich. And I'm like, baby, can I help? She's like, I just need to eat my sandwich here. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't be in it, because you don't know. You just have no idea. And I'm like, you need to go. I'm glad you got lunch, you need to go. And then she comes back, and she's sitting on the porch, and I'm like, you can't be here, I'm sorry. She said, I can't just put on my shoes? Just crazy, just shell-shocked people.
Now all of this comes from, you've had to piece together your disaster rebuild. You've had to piece it together. The system didn't help you to put it together. They didn't go block by block or neighborhood by neighborhood and help people to come back. You on your own had to fight. You got to fight with the insurance company. You got to fight with Red Cross and FEMA. You got to fight with Road Home. You have to get your documents together to be able to prove to people that that's your home. You have to fight to make sure that you don't have a bad contractor and don't go up against contractor fraud. And then when you finally get a good contractor, resources, you find out you have toxic drywall in your home. Okay? And then how do you get it out? And what happened to one of my research participants, she said that she found out she had toxic drywall in her home, but she was one of the people who was so charitable that she gave it out to other people. So now they have toxic drywall in their homes too. Now when they find it out, the lawsuit to go against people for toxic drywall has passed. Okay? So when you ask me about the grocery store, I'm hearing people swap stories, swap how it is that they get resources or responsiveness to each other. And yet, even years after, we're still doing the same thing through the rumor mill. And it shows you that there was no widespread, systemic way to bring people back into an area that we all know is devastated. If 80% of the city was underwater, how is it that we haven't gone block by block as a city to make sure that it's put back together? Everybody is treated as individual property holders that are left to their own struggle. And my way of seeing it like that was founded inside that grocery store.
You know, I think when the storm did hit and, you know, it forced all of our people to move to different places, we put some seasoning on music in other places because that's what we do. Like, I know, I remember, of course, I am preferential to hip-hop. Like, because, you know, I've been the cornerstone of hip-hop in New Orleans since day one, you know, since Jump. Since really pushing this thing out, you know, with the early bounce music, you know what I'm saying, with the No Limits and Cash Money's being like the person that broke these artists and the Take Fours and the Big Boy records, you know, all of these artists that were the foundational pieces. So it was really interesting to see how influential we were. So, you know, they were moving the music around and the DJs were getting hold of bounce, you know. New Orleans people were kind of bullies in the clubs. Like, they will bother, especially the chicks, they will bother the DJ till he played some bounce music so they could twerk, so they could shake that ass or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because they didn't want all of this slow tempo, slow BPM music. And eventually they learned how to put the drag, rap, and trick mans underneath what they was doing a little bit, you know what I'm saying? You saw, like, some of these other musicians getting chances to get on bigger stages elsewhere. They were getting collaborations with artists in other cities. And not just hip-hop, though. Our brass bands were moving around doing their thing. Some other jazz performers and funk performers were moving around.
And the good thing that I had, that music, and that because we was able to party in Houston, you know. And so that brought me back to our people, you know. Because put it like this, had we not had the music, then we couldn't come together. So we needed those club nights and we needed those parties and those events because we missed it. Remember, when Katrina came, we was months out of not partying and not celebrating. We were just down, you feel what I'm saying? So we still needed some kind of hope. We needed something to lift us up. And our music was that. And by me being one of the head artists at the time, host or whatnot, every time a party came, I was able to lead that crowd, you know what I mean? Where you from? What you representing? 504, that. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm able to hold on to is my music. You feel me? My catalog and the people. Remember, bounce music is call and response. You feel me? I say something, you say something right behind it, right? So with me up there doing my thing, oh, what wall you from? Oh, what wall you from? You feel me? And like it ain't where you're from, it's where you at. You feel me? And at that particular time, it don't matter where you was from, it was where we at that particular time. 91 somewhere east, whatever, we all was together back, you know, as a family and as a group and as a city. You feel what I'm saying? And that music is what captivated and what brought everybody together.
Performers were moving around to get some things done in other places. The food, obviously, because chefs had, if you a chef, like, it don't matter where you are, you ready to cook. And you know, we brought our flavor there, you know, hot sauce all in my bag, you know where that came from. You know, we had our own thing going on, and it ended up, you know, pushing our culture into a much wider space, you know what I'm saying? It forced us to go into those other areas, and then it made other people get forced to have to accept us, because these chefs started cooking in other restaurants, in other places, and other catering opportunities. Our artists that draw were moved to other places, and it was a great way for the culture to be spread around the country. But the flip side of that too is like it starts to change a little bit.
What up? Drop and give me 50 hurricane, holla at 'em. She wanna drop and give me 50, drop and give me 50, drop and give me 50, girl, drop and give me 50, drop and give me 50, drop and give me 50.
You know, like if you are a rapper and you're in downtown Atlanta, or if you're in Arkansas, you start picking up a little bit of the lingo, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what they accepted in those places. So we lost some of our, some of the things that were so unique to us in that way. But I guess that's just part of what happens, unfortunately, when you go to those different places. Even bringing it back, like second lines and they used to be the DJ was a thing, in your neighborhood. We going to the DJ. Like those things, they still happen, but not like they used to, you know what I'm saying? Like things have definitely changed from that perspective. But I guess that's the ebb and the flow of that many people of mass migration to other places.
And the beauty of utilizing the resource of community back to building and expanding community in this way so that every person feels safe to express their gift.
So the competitive pay for New Orleans police, mine was below national average. That officer probably moved to Kansas City and became an officer and started making $15,000 more a year. Right? Might not sound like a lot, but it's a lot. Now we talking about probably had 1,600 police officers. I just use that word, 1,600 police officers. Now we got 600. It's 1,000 police gone. It's a dangerous city without those presence of police. You feel me? So the New Orleans that we knew, that we loved, and the people that left seen other opportunities, other places. So now we got to challenge our government to make our prison system more fair, like it is in other places, and maybe we'll cut down on some of the crime because they're more fair. Maybe if you make a competitive pay, but we see misappropriated funds all the time between our city leaders that keeps us stagnated.
More vividly, I think of Katrina as a stepping off point. And the reason why I'm saying that, we lived in the Desire Project and we experienced Betsy. So my neighborhood experienced Katrina 40 years later. And when I think about Katrina, I think about the simple fact of the matter that when I evacuated, when I was in other places, the only thing that made me happy was coming back home. And the only thing that I could do for my grandchildren, my children, was to bring normalcy back. So coming back to the lower Ninth Ward, the north side of the lower Ninth Ward, was bringing normalcy back to our lives. And it was a life that we had that was happy. And it's still a life that we still have that is happy, because I'm back home, I'm back with my children, I'm back with my grandkids, and we've had great experiences since then.
I do remember Noor. I do remember at the time I was not a teen, but there was Teen Summit because I had older sisters who went to Teen Summit. And I just remember, like, as years went on, that there was no longer like any of that. I would say that played a role in like helping the youth. Yeah, and I do feel like there could be more organizations, and I feel like stuff is coming. Like I see so many people putting together youth-based events now, so I can't say that it doesn't happen, but I do feel like right after Katrina, yeah, the city was just kind of like lost. Like I don't remember there being a lot of that. Not only is this going to happen again, it will be worse. I know it will be, because again, climate change is real. We're seeing, and we just saw that they had earthquakes in Atlanta. Like, this is not a game, and it's something that I think culturally, for whatever reason, they purposely don't educate us on the realities of what's going on in our own neighborhoods. But we're first, and oftentimes the people that will experience the worst of it, first because they build or put things in our vicinity purposefully. That speaks about our air, that speaks about our pollutions. Like, we got to talk about petrochemical plants, we got to talk about landfills, our air, how we're dying, because it's not just storms killing us, it's cancer killing us too here. So there's a bigger and larger conversation that definitely needs to be had, and I would not have even known that had I not done work with Hip Hop Caucus, which is a nonprofit organization that started because of Katrina.
Division. You know, when you say division, it means divide. You know, and so now you have this family that was tight knit. You know what I mean? Even if you was in the east or you was uptown, whatever, we still was able to get there, right? Now it's not even from city to city, it's state to state. You feel what I'm saying? So the effect that Katrina had on families, they divided us, divided people. You feel me? Even if we're not blood related, you feel me? We were still friends. We still call ourselves family. Everybody in that neighborhood, you know. So now all of a sudden it's been divided. You don't have those same people around. You feel me?
The world changed a lot. Like the TSA, this country made a lot of decisions that none of us signed up for. Like Katrina happened, it wasn't a natural disaster, it was the failure of the levees. Again, the powers that be going, it's New Orleans, it's a bunch of black people, it's a bunch of poor people, there's no Fortune 500 company, there's not a lot of money here unless it's offshore with, you know, the oil or the refineries. Didn't care, and packed the levees with a bunch of old newspaper. Ta-da! If the government had been doing its job, we wouldn't be where we are. So nobody's coming to save you. You get the best people around who are assets, and you live honorably and honestly, and you make you solidify those friendships. And I think just even with all the hurricanes that we've had, certainly not on that level, but with Ida, I've watched all these communities come together and feed one another, and the cookouts on the neutral ground over on Poland, it's been remarkable. So your community is the only thing that's going to save you, because no one else is going to give a fuck.
When you hear someone say, you know what, you maybe should leave or evacuate, I would take that to such extreme precaution, like take heed and understand that whatever we thought we saw with Katrina, it can only get worse. And if our infrastructures are not built to be handled correctly, which we know that to be true in Louisiana, right? You said Band-Aid culture. We know our roads, our streets, our pipes, our electricity is oftentimes, I mean, on a nice day when it rains for 5 minutes, it floods. So these are things that we know that we have to work at as a culture and work at as a community. But in the meantime, we have to take it seriously. I think a lot of the reasons why we had so much loss is because we're so used to saying, nah, we've been through this before. We've been through this. I think it's important we have to understand that there's going to be a time when we haven't been through it before.
This aspect of Katrina, 20 years later, this is how you know that time is such another man-made construct. Because you can say all day, okay, it's 5 o'clock. Yes, we know it's, all right, yeah, it's 5 o'clock. But then you can say, I don't feel like 5 o'clock. Right. So it's these kind of things that we deal with as the spirit beings that we are in this way, and what that means for, how we react and how we respond to, again, yes, hurricane, yes, Katrina, but what else comes with Katrina? What else comes with this rebuilding? What else comes with this aspect of, again, going back to what we spoke about before, that every storm is not rain? Because yeah, we had this happen, absolutely. But then what happened after that? The sun was shining. And we still struggling. The sun's shining. We still trying to find housing. That's a storm. The sun's shining. We still got to get medicine. Oh, we don't have no more medicine. Oh, she don't have the high blood pressure pill. She don't have so it's these kind of things that come with a storm. That's not precipitation. So this is beyond, Katrina is beyond weather. But it is weather, WHETHER, whether or not we will survive in best way. So I know we spoke about this word resilience. And yeah, I understand it's a word that people don't like, but it's not that, I find that with so many words, it's not that we don't like the word, but the thing that's attached to the word, back again to what's attached to the storm, what comes with the storm. How can you not want to be resilient, right? So we know that it's not about the essence of the word. We know it's about an experience, though, that is attached to the word. So when we're talking about why do we have to consistently be resilient, why are we constantly bombarded, right, with issues and harms and pains and hurts and everything that comes? Why are we constantly bombarded with a cyclical, a systemic, and on purpose way of being murdered all the time? Yeah. So I can understand why, we like, I'm tired of being resilient. You might not be tired of being resilient, but you are absolutely tired of the deliberate harm that you are being bombarded with, that we are being bombarded with, as a community, as a people, as a human race, and that's tiring. So these little small moments of respite, these small moments of joy, these small moments of celebration, these moments of all of these things, this is important for us. We live in a place, people can come here and they will say, I don't understand how they dancing and second lining when all of this is going on. And somebody from New Orleans would be like, and I don't understand how we could not. You know what I mean? This is medicine. And if it's not your medicine, that's okay, right? Going back to that thing on high blood pressure, I don't have to take that medicine, thanks be to God. But if you do, that's your medicine. When we talking about pounding feet to pavement, when we talking about a horn that's blaring, when we talking about a note that's coming out, that's healing a certain part, an organ in your body and everything that comes from that and what that means for actual footwork and circulatory system and healing a central nervous system and everything else that comes along with it, yeah, that's medicine. And yeah, we're gonna keep doing that. And yeah, we want more of that.
Defined by disaster, refined by resilience. Oh, and baby, this is only the beginning.
Thank you, God, for all of my blessings and those that are on the way. I am overflowing with abundance, love, and opportunities. Life keeps surprising me in the best ways.